morning. What's up, everyone? Market snipers out there. It's 9 a.m. my time, and we have a special guest today who's with us, Dr. Nick Sig. What's up, Nick?
How's it going? How's everybody doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing great. We got kind of the beginning of fall here. We got cool mornings with nice, warm, sunny afternoons where I'm at in Colorado, so it's pretty hard to complain about that.
And you're a big time cyclist. So at what point does it start getting too cold to do your cycling?
That's changed, I feel like. The answer used to be January, and now, honestly, January, at least here, I'm in Boulder, Colorado. We get a lot of 60-degree sunny days in January, but man, March and April, it starts dumping 3-4 feet of snow or whatever. That's become kind of the hard time. It's like where you think spring should be springing, and it is not springing.
Interesting. Well, that's good.
Yeah, so we got some time. Yeah, we're good.
Not like my family in Minnesota. It's like after December, there's no way you're cycling. I don't think maybe there's some diehards out there, but December, January, February, if I go back to visit in January, it could be minus 20 degrees. So if you're outside for, 10 minutes, you're looking at possibly frostbite. So
no, we're not. We're diehard, but we ride inside on those days. We become a little bit soft in our older years.
Well, so today, just a quick reminder on this live stream, we're going to be going over the charts pretty heavily. The first 15, 30 minutes, the first half of the live stream. The second half of the live stream, we're going to answer questions, whether you direct the questions to Dr. Nick over there, my man Nick, or you direct the questions at me, or if you comment an asset you want us to take a look at. So if it's not a common one, like say the NASDAQ or Google or Amazon or something like that, or Ethereum or something that's on our typical watch list, then make sure to put in the asset. Maybe the asset type, is it crypto, is it stock, and put in the symbol and stuff like that. And that'll just help us for search purposes and try to help keep this, so we're not just like messing around with the charts nonstop looking for an asset for you to put a chart. So with that, I kind of want to just jump over to Nick. He's gonna share some charts and he's gonna do some heavy lifting today for us. Just a little bit of background. If you don't know who Nick is one of our snipers. He's one of the most proud people I am proud of in the sniper community. He actually was on one of the, we have the Magnificent Seven watch list, right? I didn't coin that term. I think who coined the Magnificent Seven?
I don't know. It might have been was Julian or Killian or one of them. Yeah.
I think it was Jim Cramer, but I would say Nick is one of our Magnificent Seven live coaching people, right? I've only live coached 7 people ever. And I actually discontinued it just because it was so, I tried to put every ounce of my energy into it. And what did I say? It was like, what was it? Almost a year ago now. I was like, either I have to charge you tens of thousands of dollars or I'm going to make it free, right? So, and cancel it. So I didn't want to charge tens of thousands of dollars. You guys became my friends. And we've built the relationship over since a year and a half since starting with the live coaching back in March. Nick was one of the first people in the Discord. I think, were you number 1 or number 2 sign up in the Discord?
Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So one of the first people in the Discord, still hanging around a year and a half later. Nick was one of the first paid newsletter members, right? I don't do the paid newsletter anymore. Again, that was like one of those things where either I'm going to have to charge a lot more or I'm going to make it free. And, we have a free newsletter. So recently in the last couple of weeks, it feels like I'm putting out more content on the free newsletter than I did on the paid. So I'm always trying to add value and help people out. So Nick's been around for a while and following on Twitter, obviously before that, now it's called the X app. And very, very proud of Nick. And he's actually giving back to the sniper community now. Nick, what do you do for the sniper community almost on a regular basis if you're not traveling with your wife?
Yeah, so I like to do some request videos. So we try to do them at least once a week. Like Jesse said, a little bit intermittent this summer with travel and whatnot. But basically, I've kind of gotten in the habit of basically asking people for requests, want some symbols to chart out, and then kind of let those accumulate for half a day or even a full day, and then we like to basically just do a video and release it out to everybody in the Discord. So half an hour or something, just going over 15, 20 assets, whatever it is that people request. And it's fun. I mean, it's cool just from a standpoint of, being able to interact and help people. But I mean, honestly, selfishly, like it's not every time, but like sometimes I'll see one where I'm like, oh, that's a pretty good one. And I'll kind of, keep it and set an alert for myself or whatever. So it's hopefully mutually beneficial, but certainly beneficial on my end.
It's definitely a win-win in my opinion, and I like it because I was doing those like chart requests way before the Discord back on like the X app. I would put out, I'd put out a post which used to be called a tweet, and I was I'd put out, hey, if you want me to chart anything, let me know. Like if there was like a potential breakout happening or like a potential crash down, or prices were crashing down, I was like, well, let me jump in. And like when people were like super stressed out, I would spend a couple of hours just trying to post charts for them. I think I posted like 100 charts one time on X app all in one day, trying to help people out. But people love it, right? So I try to help that out. But it's like you said, it's a win-win because two things. It could be a potential lead source, right? It could be a potential lead source where we're not looking at that asset and someone else is. And maybe we didn't think to even like chart it and possibly trade it. So I like it as a lead source. And then obviously the more charts we do and the more practice we get, the better we get too. So, I think the videos help. Coaching definitely helped me. So it was a win-win there too. But like really having to like kind of like dive in deeper of like, yes, I was doing it, right? But like when people have questions and they're asking you questions about, well, what about this or what about that? It's like, well, I have to explain it to you. So you have to like really know it inside and out. So with that, kind of jump in. Last thing, just want to say, I do appreciate you doing those videos and helping out and all that stuff. And, in my own mind, I feel like we become friends. So
I agree. And
thank you.
I cannot thank you enough for everything you've taught me and the patience you've exhibited with me when I ask stupid questions. And so, yeah, it's been awesome. So yes, absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah, keep those stupid questions to yourself in the future. No, I'm just kidding. Before we jump in the charts, we're gonna go, like I said, we're gonna go heavy in the charts. Let's just take a look at a couple comments. Good morning, Shankar. Good morning, Jesse. What's up, everybody? Who else we got? We got Kyle. Good morning, everyone. And then, of course, Emmanuel. Nick, who's Emmanuel?
He is one of our longtime Discord guys who has learned, I think, a lot in the, at least my perception is that he's learned a lot from talking to him and stuff. So I think he's done really, really well.
Yeah. And he was actually, it was me, you, and Emmanuel on one of our private live streams in the Discord too. It was just us three. So shout out to Emmanuel. What's up, Emmanuel? And then I don't know if you recognize the name here, but do you recognize this name, Nick?
Mr. Kreischman.
Yeah, we call him Kreischman because that's what his Discord name is. But Colson, right? Obviously, it's just a K before his last name. But Nick is a very sage and wise individual who has helped shape how I approach things. Definitely one to listen to when he speaks. I agree.
I paid him to say that. So
cool. Luckily, I don't have to pay any of you guys to say good things about me. But hey, if you have to pay Kreischman to say good things about you, Nick, awesome. A couple other things. Emmanuel, appreciate it, guys. Yep, you got it. Andre, good morning, gents. Fire, what's up? All right, let's jump into it. Here's our chart. I'm going to do just a couple quick charts, and then I want to get Nick's thoughts, anything he's looking at. So maybe I'll do like 5 to 10 minutes, and then I want to go heavy on Nick because Nick is really good at what he's doing right now, and it's a real treat to have him on. So Bitcoin, overall glance, we're looking at the the weekly chart, what does it look like to you, Nick?
The weekly chart looks like we're sitting on that that EMA support there, right? But at the end of the day, where are we at? Here, let me pull up my chart here. When we are, we're kind of riding a little bit of a trend line, it looks like, in terms of RSI to me on the weekly, but we've dipped below the 50. We have put in a series of lower highs and whatnot. I think we got some potential downside here before we got some upside.
Yeah, and overall on the weekly chart, it is overall bearish, right? So weekly chart is overall bearish, even if it is finding support and kind of rolling over to make that like that higher low, right? And potentially roll over after that. Maybe it waits for the trending dots to continue to catch up, or the moving averages to catch up and stuff like that. But as of right now, it's still holding above the 200-week moving average, like you said. And I put out a video last night, so definitely check that out if you want to do another update. I do Bitcoin updates on a regular basis, and we talked about the overall stock market and stuff like that. So we're just going to keep going on a couple things, and then I'm going to have you actually share your screen and have you do more of a deeper dive on a couple things, and then we'll go from there. So
yeah, cool.
This was also on the video last night, as that potential high risk opportunity. Did you see this video? Or
I saw that you posted. I didn't have time to watch it, but I did see that you put something out there.
Yeah, so this might be one of those opportunities you might want to take a look at, that I was looking at. If it was based off of that, is the stock market going to have a bigger correction, right? So the SQQQ, which is a ultra pro short, and so if the stock market or the Nasdaq, the QQQs are going through a major correction or going through a correction, this is the opposite of that, right? So if it's a bear, short QQQ, then it means you would be taking a long position and try to capitalize or use it as like a hedge for your the inverse of the market correcting, right? So Nasdaq looks like it's putting that lower high. We've got a red trending dot now. So all the things that we've been covering over the live streams and the videos over time. So I'm just going to kind of go over this quickly because I want you to share your charts. I want to sit back and kind of see what you got going over there.
Cool.
The 10-year treasury, as you can see, the weekly chart is getting ultra bullish. The monthly chart, ultra bullish, right? And then the daily chart is still bullish as well. So, we've got
hey, Jesse, why do I care about the 10-year yield? What is that?
Yeah, I mean, the 10-year yield for a couple of things, right? It's when the rates were quite a bit lower, then the mortgage rates were lower, right? So, it all kind of connects together, right? Whether it's housing, the stock market, economy, right? It's all connected. Also, the 10-year treasury, I believe, is also linked to like business debt. So if the business debt, if the rates were really low, you could borrow money cheaply, and then you could expand more. You could grow faster. And so when you can't get cheaper debt, then most likely you're going to be going through a contraction as well. So that's kind of why I watch it. For me, I really got into the 10-year treasury because it was highly correlated with, hey, if the 10-year treasury is going up, then the 30-year mortgage rates were going up. And coming from the real estate mortgage, 17 years, that's why I personally watch the 10-year treasury. So that's why it's important to me. And it's important to like overall, like, hey, if it's impacting real estate and mortgage, that's going to impact the economy too, right? Because there's so many jobs linked to real estate and mortgage that it will impact the overall economy too. So that's why I take a look at it. The DXY is still bullish on the weekly chart. I had mapped up this horizontal line. A lot of people, follow the horizontal lines very closely. Had a weekly close above there, and had another weekly close above this horizontal line. What does that mean? It means it put in a higher high from here and put in a higher high from here. And that to me signals that the probabilities are continuing to increase of hitting this higher target here on the DXY, right? It's a DXY retracement. The VIX, right, had a buy signal on the weekly chart, broke out, and has hit one target so far. There's a second target, third target, fourth target, like that. So we'll see what happens there. And that is the fast quick part of it. We're already 15 minutes into it. So try to keep the first half of the stream 15 to 30 minutes. And I definitely want Nick to jump in. So what we're going to do is we're going to bring up his chart on the stage here, as it says. And Nick, what do you want to look at?
Let's look at some futures. And I was going to say, so you were just looking at DXY. This is my version of DXY here, but looks like we're kind of coming up into this this main arm of the anchored VWAP from this local high here in what is that, September there. So September 22.
And you're on the daily chart, right?
Yep, on the daily chart here on this one. So put in a little flag there and seems like it's going. So it's going to be interesting. Sometimes this thing can act as pretty significant resistance, right? So, maybe we'll find ourselves in a situation where it kind of comes up, retests it, and then continues along this trend line, right? Or maybe, maybe not. So we'll just kind of keep an eye on it. But I think that's our roadmap as far as DXY is concerned, but definitely kind of up against something here for sure.
Yeah, but in the overall trend right now, so you're looking at the daily chart. What are you thinking? You've got that. So you got an upward trend line on the daily chart.
Yep.
You had that upward trend line on say RSI, right?
Right here. Yep.
And then you have an upward trend line on price as well.
Yep.
And then you have the MACD on your screen too. So what's the MACD? Maybe pull the MACD up.
Kind of crossed under, and now it looks like it's kind of it almost feels like we're at a little bit of decision time, right? Where was that it for the pump, or do we keep going? Obviously, with higher time frames being sort of where they're at, right? So this is weekly MACD. Obviously, that looks pretty dang strong right there, right? What I kind of look at on this in terms of, so back on the weekly chart here for DXY, right? But is where we had this bearish divergence over here, right? So starting back in May of 22 and then coming in through September of 22. And now I think this stuff is interesting, right? Because, this is a weekly chart. So this is going to take a while to play out. But we have here last week, we were kind of butting right up against this RSI trend line here. And then now it looks like we're kind of doing the same thing here. So I kind of think that in some ways, this might be the crystal ball here a little bit in terms of if we can kind of break beyond that, then we start talking about, golden pocket and the 0.5 and some of those areas being in play, right? But, obviously too, the alternative, right, is that, we've hit that, right? We've got resistance on price. We've got resistance on RSI. So it's just going to be a matter of, are we strong enough to break through those resistance levels, or do we need to accumulate a little bit before something like that happens, right?
Yeah, it was such a strong move, right? But if you're always thinking like, hey, the move was so strong or it's overbought, right? This is where a lot of times, traders, investors will either get into a position or get out of a position too quickly, right? So like get into a position too quickly if you think you're going to be shorting because it's overbought, or if you're getting out of a position and you're not pushing it as long as you can because it's quote unquote overbought. Because what we know is sometimes is when the magic happens, right? So we try to push it as long as possible, and it's bullish until it's not on the higher time frames, and it's ultra bullish until it's not. And when it's ultra bullish is when we kind of see when the magic happens. So have you looked at the monthly chart for the DXY?
Certainly can. Oh, that's cool. This is your RSI div trick. I have not pulled this chart up in a long time. I totally forgot that was even there. So that was kind of funny, but yeah, that's kind of cool.
So eventually think that could play out, right? So you've got that bearish divergence, and at some point you would expect it to come back down further, right?
Yep.
But until it does, this is at least like some sort of a retracement. So none of the targets are above for me on my chart. None of the targets are above that high of at 116 ish. Where's that high at on your weekly chart? What is that about?
Yeah, 114, 745.
Yeah, so none of my targets are above there as of right now. It's mine's kind of mapped out as like we had that big correction, and now we're just kind of getting a retracement based off of that. And then, if that longer term bearish divergence on the monthly chart plays out, it means that the DXY would eventually go back down. But this is the weekly and the monthly chart, so it's going to take time for it to play out, and it just doesn't happen overnight, right? Like this takes a long time to play out. So, so on the daily chart, weekly and monthly, it's still bullish. We do have some targets above, but as you said, there are a couple of reasons that it is running into resistance. There is, I think you pointed out bearish divergence. Also on the weekly chart, is that true, or is there bearish divergence on the weekly?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. So no bearish divergence on the weekly chart. Oh, that was the 10-year yield. Yeah. I think I was looking at. But okay, what else do you got? So that's the DXY. Anything else you want to take a look at?
DXY, yeah, I was looking at. I was in a short here for NASDAQ. So I was kind of looking at that, right? So we kind of had this breakdown there. That's on the weekly chart. And then when we get onto the daily here, just notice that we broke this price action downward trend line, right? Kind of had like a nice perfect retest of it on that very next candle here. I can zoom in a little bit so it's easier to see for folks. Sorry. Kind of broke that trend line, like I say, retested it. And now, it kind of maybe putting in a little bit of like a hammer candle or something like that, right? Are we finding some support here at this 236 Fibonacci level? So I don't know, right? So, it could definitely, weekly's bearish, right? Daily is bearish, but that absolutely doesn't mean that we don't get, maybe something like that. And then we roll over more, right? And put in yet another lower high. It certainly could happen. So we'll see what happens. We'll just kind of keep an eye on it. But kind of seems like that might be what's going down.
So I might get emotional here. I'm kidding, but I might get emotional here that two things that really stuck out that I'm really proud, right? So I don't think you've been watching the live streams, right? You haven't been watching, and that's not a bad thing of what I'm going to say.
Yeah.
So Nick's busy, right? And Nick's got this dialed in. So he hasn't been watching the live streams, I'm assuming. Number one, he said he shorted the NASDAQ so casually, right? I mean, most people are like, you shorted the NASDAQ? You're crazy. Like, what are you thinking? You're going to lose all your money. Nick said it so casually, like it's not a big deal, right? Why is it not a big deal, Nick? Why are you saying it so casually?
Because I've practiced this kick 10,000 times.
Yeah, so if you don't know what Nick's talking about, that's the old Bruce Lee quote, right? So I'm pretty sure Bruce Lee said that. Yeah. At least someone claims that Bruce Lee said that. I've never met Bruce Lee, so I don't know for sure. But the second thing, you haven't watched the live streams, and one of the things I talked about was like if you take your cursor back up here, Nick, and you draw like down where like before it broke down, I kind of took the cursor and drew down, like breaking down below the trend line like you drew, maybe a possible back test, and then possibly roll back over.
Yep.
Everything you just laid out, I was laying out as well, right? So it's like that's one of the scenarios I mapped out in advance, and you obviously it was something you were looking at too, and you haven't even been watching the live stream. So this is not a plug to say don't watch the live streams. This is a plug to say that, hey, great minds think alike. And, that's one of the things I was extremely proud that, hey, number one, you spoke about shorting the NASDAQ so casually, like it wasn't a big deal, but because you've practiced it so many times over and over again. But number two, you're looking at the exact same thing that I'm looking at where you don't need me anymore. And that was the whole point. It's like, yes, could I do just copy trading and charge a lot more? Yeah, but it's way more fulfilling for me that if I teach you how to do it and then you don't need me anymore, right? Yeah, there's a part of me that says, "Oh, you don't need me anymore." Oh, that sucks. It feels good to be needed. But when you don't need me anymore and you're 100% self-reliant and you happen to be looking at the exact same thing that I'm looking at, I just love it. So, congratulations. I love that you're doing that. And I hope you have continued success. So,
Thank you.
what else you got? So, keep going on the NASDAQ. You got
Cool.
the potential rollover. So, let me ask, you took that short? Are you still I'm going to put you on the spot. Are you still holding it, or did you take profit and wait for a new entry?
I took profit and waited for a new entry.
Why did you take profit, Nick?
Because you can't go broke taking profit, number one. Number two, we're kind of, and this is getting into the weeds here a little bit, but basically I was looking at down here on the 4-hour chart, because the 4-hour is a obviously shorter time frame than the daily, but it's still a pretty long-ish term time frame, right? It's not the 5-minute chart. Like a 4-hour chart, I mean, if you're even just like looking at this one swing down, right? I mean, like, look how long that took to play out. It took like 4 or 5 days or whatever. So it's not going to be something that you in all likelihood are like sleeping and you miss it or whatever. And so my point here is that basically, why did I take profit? I took profit when we had kind of the breakdown of this longer term trend line. And then we started putting in bullish divergence there. And then when it started flirting with kind of retaking it, that's when I took profit. So I just did it here this morning. And I'm so far pretty content with that. And that's kind of how I tend to do it. I tend to, not on the 15-minute chart, right? If I'm trading the daily chart, but maybe on the 4-hour, maybe on the 8-hour, certainly on the 12, you start seeing that divergence. It kind of means sometimes maybe we're just going to chop around in here and then we can wait to see, right? Is it going to chop around in here for a few days and break down? Maybe, probably, right? Given the state of affairs on higher timeframes. But, like we said, it also could come up here, maybe into the, 15,300, 400 range, kind of retest this line. I mean, there's all kinds of potential here. So I'm not concerned I'm going to miss the meat of the next move. For me, and this is one of those things where I think when I was first starting, and if I'm rambling too much, you can feel free to cut me off. But when I was first
I
starting,
will.
when I was first starting, I don't think I appreciated how much sort of mental bandwidth you can consume with being in a trade that goes like this, right? And if you are super stoic, right, and you can just back it on out to the daily chart or the 3-day chart and just kind of keep an eye on it from there, that's great for sure. But I'm in this deep enough, right, that I kind of like to play the game a little bit. But sitting here for this is not fun. And so I'm happy to get out when it looks like that might be where we're going. Nice trade, took nice profit on it. And then we'll see where it goes, right? If I leave a few dollars on the table because I get a lower re-entry, okay, darn. I kind of don't think that's going to happen in this case, right? But if it does, that's okay. We're securing profit and we're using hopefully sound risk management practices to help keep growing the account, right?
I'm smiling because not only have you listened over the time, but you're executing it. And one of the things that's probably one of the most difficult is you can learn the overall strategy fairly simply, right? You could say that. You could say you learn the strategy fairly simply. And then what would you say? Like 60% of it is probably the execution, right? Like actually
80.
executing what the plan you lay out.
Yeah, 80%, certainly more than 50.
I think because you're a successful business owner, I think it's easier for you to take profit and run this like a business because you are already in business, right? So like you understand the dollar of, per client, right? So if the chart is, say your client and you're going to be taking a short position, you're going to end up taking Colson. Hold on real quick. Colson wants to jump in here. Colson, the majority is execution. Yeah. So 60%, definitely majority, right? So I agree with you, Colson. So you can learn it fairly simply, well, not quickly. If you still got to put in the time, you still got to put in the work, right? There's no one saying it's like, oh, you can learn it in 1 hour, right? But the execution is very, very important, and sticking to it. And it's a mental chess game with yourself, right?
Yeah.
So you took profit. You want to realize those gains. Unrealized profit, you find out very quickly, is exciting, but it doesn't mean anything, right? And so
Right.
you understand, like, if you've got a client in the real world, right, and your own business, and if you don't take profit, you'd be doing it for free. And I don't think you want to, you would, because you're a good-hearted person. But at the end of the day, you gotta make money, right? So you
Sure.
have to charge people to do the work that you do, and help them that way. But you can still do a good job. But so in trading, I think you're in a habit of taking profit. And the great thing about it is everything you just said is unemotional, right? You had zero emotion. You weren't like, hey, I'm going to take profit, and I'm not worried that if I don't get the next trade, because I'll wait for the next setup. So there's no fear of missing out. You didn't get greedy. So those two things could have hindered you, right? So you've got, like, one, hey, if you got greedy, you wouldn't take profit. And if you had a fear of missing out, then maybe you would jump back into the trade. Or if you're like biased and you think the Nasdaq is going to go back to $6,000 price range, right? Which is always a possibility. But if you just held it and waited and waited and waited, thinking it's always just going to crash, and it doesn't, and what if it goes up and makes new all-time highs? You'd be on the wrong side of the trade, and I guarantee you won't be as profitable, right?
Yep.
So those are a couple of things I want to point out on the NASDAQ. So again, I'm going to keep saying I'm proud. That's great. And then I think you're in the similar thought that, hey, maybe it's finding key support temporarily. Maybe it lets the trending dots catch up. Maybe it lets the moving averages kind of catch up, does some sort of a retracement, and then you'll be ready for that next short the lower high, short the bounce, right? If that's something that you're looking at.
Yep. Yeah, no question. And really, like what you said there is a part where I think that and I don't know if it's just from years of crafting it, right? Or if it's just kind of God-given natural talent on your end, but you are so good at that as far as just being unemotional, right? Like you can be fully convicted that we're going up one day and down the next, if that's what the chart says. And that's how you should be. And it took me a while to get there, very much. And I still absolutely have days where I have a rule now where if I feel myself getting emotional about a trade, I'm done. I literally like turn the computer off and I walk away, because nothing good is going to come from that, right? Like I'm going to just lose money. I'm not going to get anything. I'm not going to get whatever I wanted to make that day. It just, nope, no. Like we're switching this off. I'm going to go take my dog for he's sitting right here, WALK. I can't say that word out loud.
Yeah.
Or I'm going to go ride my bike, or I'm going to go do something, right? I'm going to go touch some grass. I'm going to go get my head right before I come back to this game, because I really do think, and you said this in our coaching videos, and I think it was such a spot on observation at the time that I really didn't think about. But this whole game is designed to make you react emotionally and to make you do something stupid that you shouldn't do, but you're going to do anyway because you're worked up. And so I have like literally just gotten to the point where I would rather miss a good trade because than the opposite, right? Where I force something that's not there because I'm, stressing out about it or whatever. And so I just like, I'm not going to do that. Right. And so to your point, like, it's just kind of like running a business, take your profits, be consistent. Don't do anything stupid, right? Don't make any Hail Marys that you wouldn't do at your regular job.
And not force it, right? So you've hit it exactly perfectly. So let the trade come to you. And if you lay out your strategy, right? You said, hey, I'm only going to take an entry based off of XYZ, right? And if it's not checking off all the boxes on your checklist, then are you chasing? Are you fear of missing out? Are you seeing a big green candle that you weren't like stalking the trade for? Maybe you were stalking it for a week or 2 weeks, or I've stalked a trade longer, right?
Yep. Yep.
So letting it come to you and not letting, one way that you could get emotional and let uh, everything take you off your game is what? Noise, right? So if you let the noise in, the narratives in, you could it's more, I think it's easier for you to get caught up in the hype or get caught up in the emotions because other people are emotional, right?
Yes.
So at the end of the day, when you're trying to filter all the noise, it's good to be aware of what's going on in your surroundings. But once you're able to like have so much confidence of what you're seeing on the charts, then you have that filter and you can quickly filter out the noise. Give us an example of that if you have any off the top of your head. It's like where you're seeing someone or you're seeing a show. You don't have to call anyone out or name
Yeah.
anyone, but maybe just an example of what you saw and then you laughed or giggled to yourself because you saw something else differently. Do you recall anything recently?
I don't know if I can recall anything in specific, but certainly yes. Twitter accounts. I'm not trading as much crypto as I was. I'm kind of more focusing on the futures now, which I'm enjoying, and it's going well. So if anybody wants to know more on futures, like Jesse said, always still trying to learn more, but always trying to help people out. So
Yeah.
but with that said, right, it's one of those things where you'll see a big, multiple 100,000 followers on Twitter. Somebody will say something, and I'm just sitting here kind of going like, no, little buddy, I think we're going the other way, And so it's that part is cool, right? Where you can kind of get to a point where, like I said, this stuff is made to be emotional. And I think a component of that is that it's a little bit confusing inherently, right? Like, and there's no real like guidebook. I mean, there kind of is, but there's not really like a guidebook you can just pull out to be like, how do I do this? And so there's kind of like this barrier to entry a little bit, right? And so it can be one of those things where I think, when you're first starting, you kind of see the people who are successful and presumably they are. And I don't put quotation fingers to say that they're not, but you see kind of the big names or whatever, and you assume that they have some direct wire from the market gods to know what's going on. They don't, right? They don't know anything more than we do. And it's just a matter of kind of like executing and sticking to your system and sticking to the kick that you've practiced 10,000 times and not letting somebody else who may know more than you, or frankly may not know more than you, influence your decision. Fish on your own. Don't let somebody else fish for you.
Yep. And you just have to, if you put in the chart work, you'll have the more confidence to, you'll see some of that, noise or narratives out there, and you can just rely on yourself and you can rely on the charts and say, well, I disagree, so I'm going to stick to it. So that confidence only comes with putting in the chart work. So you still have to put in the chart work, but it's kind of funny. You said it took you a long time, right, to kind of figure this out. It's been less than a year and a half, or it's been about a year and a half. So in the grand scheme of things, Nick, it's only been a year and a half. So to say that it took you a long time is not true, right? Like you picked this up very quickly. And I would even say, like, I feel like going back to our conversations, within 3 months, you were like very, very close to where you're at right now. Probably like you picked it up fairly quickly. I'm sure you've layered in more experience and even, like your own set rules and stuff like that over the time. But the first 3 months, I feel like you've got it. And you're, not everyone's going to get it and not everyone's going to be successful. That's just the nature of, at your job, or whether you're training for a marathon, or you're going to start a business, or a trader or investor. Not everyone's going to be successful. So, you always got to pat yourself on the back. But I want to get back to the charts and do the comments. And before we do that, quick shout out to G-Rod. He's always coming back. Good morning, gents. Got a few minutes to tune in, and I'll watch the rest later. Awesome. So you're going to be the live crew and the replay crew. Awesome.
And I was going to kind of touch up on the charts on one point that you made earlier, where you're talking about like, how do we execute unemotionally? How do we essentially, at the end of the day, what we want to be is a robot, right? We want to just see a series of factors that are lining up in a direction where we think there is a statistical probability that it's going more in one direction versus the other, right? That's all we're actually looking at here.
Yep.
And at the end of the day, like, you can sit here and like, what if I did miss a trade, right? And you're going, God, I missed it. It's so annoying. Well, let's just look at this, right? So like on my watch list here, I've got these kind of grouped out by like agriculture, right? Forex and interest rate stuff, energies, metals, cryptos, equities. So you can kind of compartmentalize, right, these assets. And like, if we go here and we look at the Russell, for example, right? Like the Russell has come down way further than like the NASDAQ did, right? So was the Russell kind of giving us the roadmap for what was going on? And is it still maybe giving us the roadmap for what's going on, including but not limited to this extra little, lower high here? I don't know. I don't have a crystal ball, but it could be. And so that gives us something to look out for on the NASDAQ and on the S&P.
So you're saying the Russell 2000 could be potentially a leading indicator and kind of possibly telling us where, the retracement levels could go, right?
That's what yep. And so that's so it's okay, you missed a trade, right? Are we going to FOMO into that trade that we missed? Or are we going to go find the Russell and the NASDAQ pair, if you will, to where you're going like, ooh, and that trick works a lot on gold and silver, right? So silver's kind of going down. Gold went down a couple days ago. So was gold leading? Maybe, right? And so you can play this game across the board, right? And again, it doesn't mean that you're going to be 100% right 100% of the time, but it certainly helps.
Yeah, definitely. I think there's certain assets that could be, like that canary in the coal mine that they talk about, right? So, or the old term canary in the coal mine. So sometimes assets are leading and sometimes they're lagging. So if we can spot one that looks very similar, obviously, like you said, it's not going to be exact and there's no guarantee. But when you're doing your research, if one is leading the way and if the asset you're wanting to trade hits similar targets to the one that led the way, man, it feels like you've got the cheat code sometimes, right? So sometimes it does. I felt like I was late on shorting Bitcoin 20. I've talked about this before, shorting Bitcoin 2021 at the end. And so I moved over to Ethereum because I did like a full 2-day research side-by-side comparison of Ethereum and Bitcoin. And I went back to old charts and stuff like that. And so for me, I ended up shorting Ethereum, right? Because I didn't want to do the fear of missing out I had fear of missing out of shorting Bitcoin to the downside. So I moved over to Ethereum and waited patiently for that next lower high, and I shorted that bounce. So that is exactly what I want to talk about. Any other charts that's caught your eye or you want to take a look at?
The other one I'm in right now, I did a mini contract this morning on lower time frames, kind of combined with higher time frames here on oat futures.
Okay.
And so we had kind of this longer term trend line here. Looks like it kind of found support on that and is starting to bounce, right? When we look at the weekly, looks like we're starting to potentially find some RSI support on the 50 level there, right? And so then what I did was just kind of went down onto lower time frames here onto the 2-hour chart and kind of played that one right there. And so that's, we had a nice example of some bullish divergence here. We had trend line support, like I say, on the RSI 50 on higher time frames. Things were kind of working out in our favor. And this is turning out to be a nice trade here. So now we'll just kind of see where this goes, right? And, when we're on the daily, we've kind of got, do we hit this 50 and roll over? Do we break through and we can send it up here into the, $750, dollar range or whatever? That'd be cool. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. And we'll just kind of take it level by level. But, also obviously kind of found support here on this retest on the main arm of the anchored VWAP there from this high in April of 2022. So a number of factors pointing us in the right direction. And so far, so good here on this one, but kind of a risky, aggressive trade a little bit, but so far seems to be working out here for me.
Awesome. Well, I hope it works out. And if you execute the plan, I'm sure it will work out because, like I said, you don't jump in for no reason. Couple things that caught my attention when you were going through that was number one, what was that alert that popped up?
I don't know. I didn't even look. Let's see. What was it here? That was the NASDAQ 15-minute line. Sometimes I just like to keep an eye on where we're at on lower time frames.
Well, the part that made me smile when it popped up is that you're actually using alerts, right? So I'm a big fan of using alerts, and so when that popped up, it's like none of this is scripted. So when it pops up, I just laugh and smile because it's like everything. If I could imagine someone doing something the way that I would hope that they would do it, I mean, you're nailing it all in one call, right? So I just keep smiling, like an alert pops up, or you do this, or you do that. I'm like, oh my god, it's like perfect. I love it. So where did you put your, So you did you took an entry based off the 2-hour chart, right?
Yep. So it literally just kind of. I think I was kind of down in here or so, something like that, right?
Okay.
Kind of like right there. And then I set my take profit basically just up here for now, but I'm sure I'll have to manually do the take
zoom
profit.
in on the chart, like scroll into it just so I can see it too? I'm just curious because, okay, so, and that's 21%. So what is the risk to reward ratio on that?
8 to 1.
What?
Yeah, so you don't have to hit too many of these and find yourself in a good situation.
Do you recall how often do you have to be correct to be profitable on a 2 to 1 ratio?
33% of the time.
God, you're good. I love it. So yeah, we did a video on that. And so this is an 8 to 1. I've never, I don't remember calculating, how often you have to be right on an 8 to 1, but it's probably like 10% of the time, right? But
probably. I think I have a little breakdown. I'll see if I can find it.
Yeah. So a 2 to 1 ratio, you have to break even, I think is like 33 point something percent, but to be profitable is like 34%, just above the 33% to break even on a 2 to 1 ratio. Well, I think when you're stacking the probabilities, your ratio of being right is going to be much higher than that, even on these 2-hour charts, Nick. So, I don't know if you've been tracking like hyper focus, but I would say that you're probably at an 80% clip. I bet.
Yeah, I think that's pretty fair.
Even with like, and so if you have an 8 to 1 ratio and you're doing, these are futures, so this is what leverage too on top of it, right?
Yep.
So 8 to 1, and you've got a 20% potential automatically take profit. And of course, it may not hit that higher target; it may only go halfway. So, what else is your strategy? Like, when do you consider yourself your trade to be wrong or moving in the wrong direction? Like, do you have like a pull the parachute type of play, or like, so you've got your stop loss, you've got your automatic take profit, so that's great. So where do you think that you're like your mental trailing stop loss would be on this oat futures?
Yeah, so we can kind of draw this one out, right? So drawing our fib lines from the top to the bottom here, right? So haven't even gotten up into the 236 area, which logic would somewhat dictate that that's probably kind of our first, our first area here. We're going to find some resistance. And so then when we throw on our VWAP, it's being difficult for some reason. There it is. So you can kind of see maybe we're front running that a little bit, but I think we've got some room to move up here. So we'll kind of see what happens. But yeah, I mean, if for me, it's one of those things, right, where I'll keep this 2-hour chart kind of on in the background, and then we'll see where it's going. But if we're starting to get up into here where we've got like multiple long wick candles that can't get above, the combination of this lower arm and the VWAP plus the 236, that's probably looking like profit taking time, right? And then one thing I've really learned for me, and I think that this kind of goes for a lot of things with trading, is that like no two people are the same, and there is no right or wrong answer to this thing. I think sometimes people think that this is a very black and white, very binary, like yes or no sort of thing, and it's really just not, right? Like One thing that I have learned about myself, and this is just me, and I think you actually do not have this deficiency, but like one of my things is sometimes I'm not great at staying in a trade, but I am pretty good at finding trades. And so knowing that, right? Like maybe you're just kind of going like, again, like, well, you know, similar to my NASDAQ one, right? Like take some profit, let's go find another one, right? And then take profit and go find another one, take profit, go find another one. And then, you know, I can work on my deficiency of how am I going to get better at staying in trades and this and that, right? And I try to do that stuff, but I'm also fine just taking the profit, you know? And so it's one of those things where, like I say, that works for me, but I don't think that's really what you do. And that's okay. I think it works for both of us, right?
I don't think it's a deficiency because for me, my thought is there's certain trades I try to push it, and there's certain trades I'm doing more like you where I'm in and out of a lower time frame. So it's the overall, you know, if it's more of like a choppy market, or if it, and I think it's just like a retracement of like a move, then I'm going to be more like this 2 hour chart here where I'm in and out, right? So there's two different things. Now, if it's a strong trending market where it's the Bitcoin bull market, right, of 2020 and 2021, I think your strategy is going to change, Nick. I think it's going to be, you know, you buy that dip and you push it as long as possible, and then we move to the higher time frames and we push it as long as possible because there's going to be a greater opportunity to try to push those trades longer because it's good. You know, those type of bull markets are like a buy the dip and then let it ride, right? But when it's going through a bear market and it's choppy and there's a lot of retracements going on, this is the perfect strategy. But I think your strategy will not evolve, but will change with a bull market, right? So I think it's the product of the current market. So I think, you know, if and when we get another bull run, obviously I'm in camp of hoping we get another bull run, right? If we get another bull run, I think it will change to where like you'll buy that dip and then it's going to be, well, let's push it as long as possible because that's when you see those major gains, right? Those, and
Yeah,
then you've
absolutely.
experienced that before you even got into like sniper trading. You nailed Doge, right? You nailed the Doge one. So that's the power of pushing a trade, and you weren't even like the skill level you're at right now. So you get back into like a bull market, I think it changes for you. So
Yeah, no, I think that's
it'll be
fair.
interesting
But I
to
also
see
think that's
your
part of it,
mindset
right?
change
Is like
after that.
totally. And I think that's part of it though, right? Is like being flexible and not just like, you know, there's a difference between like testing out 500 different systems and then sticking with something, but there's also like a difference between like sticking with it for too long to where, you know, you're obviously not going anywhere fast, right? And so sometimes finding that balance is kind of hard, but I think with it's like any business, right? You want to be constantly evaluating where you're at and making small changes to hopefully maximize your profitability and efficiency.
100%. So these days mostly you're mostly in the futures, right? So like you're trading futures. So everyone's got their own thing. And you know, for me, it's like I started trading futures in January, and I started with like getting I was dipping my toes in the water, and now like 9 months later, I'm still trading futures. I really like futures myself because you can trade. You know, we've had these conversations before where you can trade Bitcoin and Ethereum on futures, and you don't have to really worry about. You can kind of trade them on those legacy brokers and exchanges, right?
Yep.
Versus like the crypto exchanges. So there are some benefits there. Like you feel like you don't have to always keep one eye open on the exchange that the exchange could possibly crash. We started thinking about this, you know, June 2022 when we were seeing all those crypto exchanges going down. That we were starting to think in other ways that how could we still trade and take advantage of like Bitcoin and Ethereum without going all in on crypto and the crypto exchanges and trading there, and then have to worry that one day it's just all gone, right? So
Or
that's kind of
even
what
that.
led. Go ahead. Sorry.
No. I was just say, certainly the exchanges can go south. I mean, we all saw what happened to Binance or FTX, I should say. But even going further down the paranoia rabbit hole, right? Like you can worry about like USDT depegging or USDC depegging. And I am not saying those are going to happen. I'm not here to create FUD, right? But like, I think like kind of going back to maybe what we were talking about 20 minutes ago, right? Where it's like just trying to get in the right headspace, like the fewer scary things on your shoulder that you're kind of sitting there watching out for, I think the better, right? So like if you're not worried about USDT depegging, like it's going to free up your mental bandwidth to trade better somewhere else, right? And so again, I'm not saying that nobody should be using a crypto exchange or anything. It's just for me, this seems to work pretty well.
Yeah, definitely. So it's just an awareness that, if it's happened before, it could always happen again. So for me, I like to be diversified, right? So I never kept all my, even when I was mostly trading Bitcoin, if I had a great trade, then I want to pull out like 50% and diversify it into like my options account or, a different type of investment account or over to my E-Trade account or stuff like that, right? Or at the time it was Thinkorswim or whatever. And I think you're using Thinkorswim over there, but it's kind of like diversifying and taking it out of the digital world and then put some in. And of course, not just pushing all back in over and over and over again, because that's when I've had my biggest setbacks, going back to the 2008 housing crash when I kept doubling down and, going all back in on fix and flips and stuff. And then all of a sudden the market that I was in dropped 50% in 6 months, right? So like I've already gone back to zero. I don't want to go back to zero. I can't. I'm in my 40s now. It's different going back to zero. It still hurt, trust me, in my mid to late 20s. But going back to zero in my 40s I don't know. That would be brutal, right?
Yeah.
So I can't do that. I got to be diversified. I don't put all my eggs in one basket. And that's kind of what we had talked about. I want to keep going the charts. I don't see any requests. So let's keep going through some charts. I know we're coming up an hour. How are you doing on time?
Oh, good. Yeah, all good here.
Okay, so you got some time. I want to go through. I'm going to take a look at. Let me see if I'm going to add the stage here. Okay, you can see my chart, right?
Yes, sir.
I just want, for my own purpose, my own self, I want to just take a quick glance at NVIDIA and kind of walk through it, look at it. So NVIDIA, we kind of talked about on the live streams. Like I said, I don't know if you've been able to see them or not. You're a busy guy trading yourself, but then also running a successful business over there. Emmanuel, I have several requests if possible. Let's see. Yep, right. So just comment it, Emmanuel, and then we'll put it up on the screen and we'll take a look at it. I'm going to run through the Magnificent Seven real quick. And then so we'll definitely chart your request if you put it in there. So let me know. Daily chart, right? Talked about the big, I put the big emoji back here. What are your thoughts on this 20% gap?
Gaps like to get filled.
But when, Nick, when will it get filled?
That I don't have a crystal ball on.
Yeah, I don't either. So, the quick recap, NVIDIA, we even talked about this way back here, right? This is a possible scenario that maybe we get like a lower high, price come back down, whether it would find support at the trend line, bounce, put in another lower high before hitting a lower target, has come back down and hit this target area here, right? And it actually came back below it. Now it comes back up. Maybe it's just going to kind of like put in a more shallow lower high, right? So it comes back down, kind of fakes out, traps some more bulls, and then put in a lower high here and then continues back down. So that's kind of what I'm seeing on NVIDIA. There was probably, as Nick would do, take some profit here at a key target area, and it's starting to reverse back around in the lower time frames, right? You get kind of that bounce. So I'm not saying Nick shorted NVIDIA, but this seems like a classic Nick area to take profit, let it kind of like bounce back up, and then classic, Nick jumps back in and shorts NVIDIA again, right? Like if Nick were to short NVIDIA, it seems like you just basically showed us the exact same thing in the NASDAQ, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's the NVIDIA. Let's take a look at Meta. So we were showing this breakdown here, reversal candle, and then price kind of came back up. Looks like it possibly put in another lower high, sell signal, and now it's just kind of curling back over. So, overall, it just looks like it's bearish on the weekly, the daily chart. Weekly chart hasn't rolled over to make it bearish quite yet, but there was the bearish divergence here, RSI sell signal, and the overall trend is starting to trend back down. And we do have some gaps down below. We have a 10% gap here, massive 20% gap down here. And after that long rally where we already had this massive 21% gap mapped out to the upside, it was filled. It was filled strongly with multiple weeks. And now it looks like it potentially could be rolling over. I'm kind of going faster because we're already at an hour. And now we'll go through some of Emmanuel's. He's got, like he said, he wasn't kidding. I don't know if you see those comments. He's got several requests. So I don't know if we're going to get all to them, but Amazon still trending downward on the weekly chart, even though hasn't put in a sell signal yet. Did have that big breakdown on the weekly chart, right? In the lower time frame, you might see a reversal where it kind of comes back up, rolls over, very similar to like what Nick was talking about in the NASDAQ. Maybe puts in that lower high and then continues back down, right?
Fills that gap, yeah.
Exactly. And then Microsoft kind of mapped this out. Will it kind of retrace maybe part of the retracement? It could be like a bear flag, right? Could be some sort of a pattern, bearish pattern that it puts in and then continues back down. It never really put in, a couple live streams ago, I put on, would we see, Microsoft kind of put in like a bear flag and then test trending dots prior to moving down? It hasn't. It's still bearish, as you can see on the daily chart. Let's look at the weekly chart. It's a pending sell signal on the weekly chart, right? So overall, we're just kind of going through these, top asset classes. And if you're seeing like a pattern here, Nick, on the Magnificent Seven, what's kind of jumping out at you in the Magnificent Seven?
It looks like we're putting in lower highs and then trying to roll over, right? Kind of across the board.
Yeah. And so that's why I'm kind of doing a recap here, because we've been doing the recaps and we've been mapping this all out on the live streams, for 2 weeks now, right? And talking about these exact scenarios playing out. But since you haven't been on them, and we're in the same camp of basically looking at the similar things, I'm asking you because it looks like you're seeing the same things as well. So it's good to have the same team looking at the similar assets and calling out the same thing, right? So yep. Tesla, again, looks like it, especially on RSI, right? And if we move the candles to like a line, it would look very similar to RSI, where it looks like a lower high was put in, right? Breaking back down below the trending dots. If you go to the daily chart, there was that sell signal 3 days ago, right? Candle close below the trending dots, rolling over, sell signal, and moving downwards, right? So you can just kind of see it all. We were talking about the breakdown of Apple way back here. Even map this out in the Discord almost very closely to this, right? And sometimes it gets eerily similar, right? And it's not because we have a magic crystal ball, as Nick pointed out earlier. It's because we stare at the charts obsessively, right? Over and over and over again. Google talked about this, on the live streams, called it the bearish divergence. It was breaking down. We were talking about it, and then boom, hit that flush down to the bottom. Then it gapped down, and now we're just kind of seeing if we're going to put in like, way back here, we're talking about, will we see Google break down, find support, possibly put in a lower high, and then continue down, right? Like this is all mapped out ahead of time. So will that still be the case, right? Will that still be the case? And this would be that higher probability short position that Nick's looking for, right? Sniper Nick would be looking for some sort of retracement. He'd most likely probably drop down to a lower time frame, look for that short, the bounce opportunity. And that lower high is that higher probability short on Google. Not trying to give you any ideas for you to jump in. I know you're already looking at futures, but that's what I was looking at. Any other thoughts before we jump into some of these comments, Nick, about the Magnificent Seven, maybe the overall markets, your take on it, and then we'll jump into the requests.
No, I don't think so. I think what you said is right. So just kind of waiting for that lower high there on Google, but something that it would be cool to get a lower high, right? I mean, that's a nice thing. It would be cool to fill that gap. That's a nice thing. The other thing that would be super cool, right, is like on your RSI there, if RSI comes up and basically tries to get to the 50 and looks like it rejects hard off of there, that's just yet another, just kind of boom and rolls over there. That would be just textbook perfect. Like,
as far as a trade, right?
Yeah. As far as trade goes,
just to clarify, when you say really cool that Google is rolling over
terrible and economically
crashing,
not
right?
viable.
You sound like an awful person because there are going to be winners and there's going to be losers, right?
Yeah.
So in every trade, there's a winner and loser, and if you're looking to if you're looking to short Google, hey, this is unscripted. This is raw. This is we don't have an outline here. We're just kind of talking about the charts in real time. We're on a live stream. But if you were to look for a short position on Google, that's what you're talking about. That entry would be cool for Google, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Well, I like to see that. Let's kind of look at the comments here and talk about it. Per06, always coming back on the live streams. Thanks for your support. We appreciate you, Per06, always doing good comments and your requests and stuff like that. Breakfast of Champions, Oat Futures, winky eye, right? So Nick, looking at those Oat Futures over there, love it. Emmanuel, I have several requests. Yep. Okay. And Link, AVAX, Ocean, Aptos. Nick, I'm going to do, so Emmanuel, I put out a poll. Do you want me to do a Google video tonight for 10 minutes or a chain link? And the poll so far is like 85% want me to do chain link. So I'm going to do chain link video tonight. So let's skip that one, Emmanuel, and I'll send out another video on chain link for 10 minutes. So Nick, do you want to take on AVAX? Do you have AVAX in your chart?
Let's do it.
All right. Let me add your chart to in, and you are live on your chart for AVAX. This is in real time. We're gonna watch.
I have no drawings on this one, so no cheating here. We are just going for it, right? So when we are looking at AVAX, what are we looking at? We have got a weekly RSI at 40. Okay, so for me, and I think Jesse would probably agree, but for me, when we start to get into that 40 range is where we can start to think about maybe a move to the upside, right? But still definitely squarely in bearish territory. So now we're looking here. We bring it kind of down onto the daily chart. We obviously had kind of these two big strong rejection candles up here at 73 cents or so, which led us down to where we're sitting here now. It's chopping, right? It's not really doing much of anything. I think it's going to need to accumulate a little bit. It's probably going to put in something here. And then over time, presumably will correlate a little bit with Bitcoin, but not necessarily as we saw with Chainlink and everything else, right? To get a move to the upside. But yeah, I think maybe getting a bounce, but to me, there's not enough evidence here yet to want to do much with that. Are you seeing anything different?
No, I mean, that's basically what we talked about on previous live streams as well. So we'll just kind of flip back and forth just because I think it's kind of fun to look at your chart, look at my chart, go back to your chart. Like, I think it's kind of cool. So I do have just a couple drawings from the other day. So this is like 4 days ago. So what I'm seeing is, and I don't know if you have the sharpshooter RSI on your chart, but it's picking up bullish divergence, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
definitely.
Bullish divergence. And then this is like, if I change the inputs or the settings, most likely this is also picking up bullish divergence. And so on the daily chart for AVAX, we're kind of looking at the bullish divergence and that there are signs of life on relative strength daily chart, right? But like you said, it would get more interesting if the relative strength started getting back above 40 is starting to gain relative strength, right? So I completely agree with you. We do have that bullish divergence.
Mhm.
Uh, and we do have like signs of life of like the RSI getting back above potentially. It hasn't closed yet. The candle hasn't closed yet, but potentially back above like the RSI EMA, right? So that's something, and it could just be like this shorter bounce, the shorter retracement, and it's still going through this overall longer term uh this overall here, let me get back on the cursor. This overall longer term bottoming phase, right? So you've got longer term bullish divergence. This could be slight longer term bullish divergence, right? And the indicator is picking it up from back here, but it's potentially picking it up back here. Maybe it puts in another low here, or potentially future bullish divergence again. But watching this kind of like potentially break out and maybe a higher bounce at that point. So too early to say exactly like Nick called it. I love it. We're on the same page there. So I'm going to flip it back to you. And we won't do all of Emmanuel's requests because we'll be here all day. That guy could look at charts with us all day as well. So I'm going to let you pick. Instead of
Cool.
Link, you've already done AVAX. Do you want to do Ocean or Aptos? What do you want?
Let's do Ocean.
You're the boss now.
All right, I'm just going to remove all these drawings. We've got all kinds of stuff on here. All right, so let's zoom out here. Where are we at on Ocean? We are sitting at 48, right, on the weekly. To me, when I'm looking at this stuff, and I don't know if you kind of do this, but I just look at sort of like ranges sometimes on RSI, right? So it's like we've obviously got some support kind of right in there at like 45 or whatever, right, on the weekly. And then we kind of know just from doing this, but that the 50 is probably going to be something, right? So for me, I'd want to see some kind of indication as to which direction we're going there. Obviously, being the weekly chart, we're not going to wait for the weekly chart. So we're going to come down onto the daily. But, when I'm looking at this, right, it looks like we're in a nice consolidation range right now. To me, again, like if you're looking to be aggressive on an entry, right, you can take, that one or something like that. But if we're looking for something where we, kind of want a surefire bet, I think we're looking at that one, right? And so you can see we've kind of rejected off of there here just within the last couple of days or whatever. Is it going to find support here on the 50 and then maybe go? It could, right? Or this all could just be a fake out and it rolls right over to the other side. I think if I'm Emmanuel on this one, I'm probably watching that trend line there on the daily and just sort of seeing here. It's kind of got to make a decision here sometime in the next month or so, right? It can chop around in here a little bit, but at some point it's got to go one way or another. Well, I guess not really, but in theory, it probably will.
Yeah. So really three things. It could just go sideways forever, right?
Up, down, or nothing. Yeah.
Or we could be getting ready, like you're saying, it's definitely coiling up, right? So it's either going to be, and we're going to be watching it, either to the upside or the downside, but it's coiling up, and we're going to be watching basically those two lines of a potential bounce or further breakdown on this chart, right? So, like you said, it could be finding support on RSI weekly at like the 45. I'm pretty sure you said.
Yep.
But if you drop down the daily chart, what is the MACD showing?
Just crossed over, up and over the zero. We've had a bullish cross, so it seems like up is the trend there anyway.
Yeah, and so the MACD can be a lagging indicator. Ooh, we got another alert. I love it. We can even hear the sound over here.
Oh, cool. I was wondering if he could.
Yeah, it's like yeah,
I can probably
it's like a doorbell. Honestly, it's
delete
like
the 15-minute alert here. Cool.
So awesome. I love the alerts. So it's kind of a wait and see. If you're already in a position, Emmanuel, let us know. Like when you want us to chart something, let us know if you're already in a long or a short position, so we can kind of look at it as like, hey, maybe you took a position and are you considering taking profit? Obviously, we're not giving financial advice on this live stream. We never will. We're not financial planners. We're just doing this for educational and entertainment purposes. Hopefully, Nick's kind of entertaining over there because I'm usually not, right? So uh, AVAX, Ocean, it's kind of a wait and see on Ocean. It's coming right to a point. It's been coiling up. It could break down either way. Currently, the weekly chart is currently still bearish. But if you look at it, what is that? Aptos?
Aptos, it's the other
Okay.
one.
So we'll move on from AVAX. Sounds like or it seems like Nick wants to look at Aptos too. So let's do it. Let's look at it and let him talk about it. And I'll shut up.
We've got what appears to be some bullish divergence here on the daily, going back a ways, right? Going back to June. Not a ton of information on the weekly chart, obviously. So no divergence or anything that I'm really seeing there. Could get a bounce here, though, right? I mean, I think I'd want to see, it seems, again, kind of going back to my comment on the previous asset here, but when we look at this, right, this level right here on the RSI on the daily chart at, call it 59, let's call it 60, has proven to be impenetrable thus far. So, this would be one, right, where given the state of the current market and everything, how NASDAQ's going down, Bitcoin looks like it's going down, we want to trade these charts individually, right? But a lot more often than not, this is going to correlate with what Bitcoin's doing. So does it come here, roll over? Maybe it retests this trend line and then it can go. That'd be cool, right? Or it could be something, right, where it does break up and over, retests that, and then it could go. I think I'd be probably looking for either one of those before I went and did something with this one.
What was the weekly chart, Nick?
Yeah, not a lot of information, right? No real divergence or anything, just kind of sitting at 38. So not a lot of information there, but doesn't necessarily give you a tremendous amount of confidence that a enormous move to the upside is inbound.
There's not a lot of history on the weekly chart to start with. And my thoughts are always like, I just prefer to trade stuff that has more history so I can get like a better feel for it and like back test it and study it and really know what I'm trading before I jump in. That's just me personally. But so on the weekly chart overall, it was looking bearish, right? So if this is, a breakout that you played on the daily chart, I would consider it a bounce until like a smaller bounce until proven otherwise because of the weekly chart. And the weekly chart was still trending downward. So until the ship gets turned around in the weekly chart and starts to flip back bullish, the trending dots, start going sideways, start to curl back up, start to get more bullish on the weekly chart overall. You just got to kind of think that, is this just going to be a bounce? And it doesn't mean that the bounce isn't going to be a nice bounce, but overall, like, I'm not seeing it as an overall trend change, but more of like, if you're buying the rip, if you're buying the dip, you better sell that rip, right? It's one of those where, it'd be a quick position most likely on the daily chart, and then you're taking profits and you're out. It's not, that's kind of my viewpoint on Aptos. What do you think?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, bounce to even the 236 lower arm of the VWAP would be nice though. I mean, that's
huge.
That's kind of huge, right? So we're talking about 50%.
Yeah, don't get Emmanuel too excited over there with a 50% bounce quite yet. If you were to dial in the daily chart and you like zoom in on that last pivot from August, right? And you kind of like eyeball the 50%, or you can draw a fib line or something from that last pivot down to the bottom. Then you're looking at maybe a retracement to like $7 or something. The last pivot from like above the sell. So you see where the last sell signal. Yep. And then see that last pivot of that wick to the left of it, 4 days before that last sell.
Oh yeah.
Above it.
Yeah.
So draw the fib from that top wick. No, the next one down. Oh, it's close enough. So the overall eyeball test of like, halfway retracement would bring you to about that $7 level. Yeah, exactly. Perfect. Would bring you to like a retracement to there. So that's kind of what you'd be looking at as well, right? And then if it flips that resistance and those targets in support, then I would feel more comfortable of hitting that higher 0.236 play, right? So you've got kind of like a confluence there, like $6, $7, $6.50, you know, those kind of targets. And if it bounces, hits that, then flips those into from resistance into support, then I could see that 0.236 come into play and having that bigger bounce from there. That's just kind of what I see on it. Wow. All right. Now we're starting to get a lot of comments. Let's keep going here. If there are no more requests from the community and you have extra time, can we check near RNDR and in? Sure. We can take a look at it. Let's go through all the comments. Maybe we'll come back to it. All of them are crypto. Got it. Arnold. Nick, you know who Arnold is, right?
Heck yeah.
Sup, boss? What's up, Arnold? Oh, sup, Nick? Kyle, is that Ava or AVAX? That was AVAX, Kyle. On Nick's chart. Yep, that was AVAX. And then he did Aptos and what was the other one?
Ocean.
Ocean. That's right. And we're going to save link. I'll do link for about 10 minutes. Yep. We're almost an hour live starting the request. Time fly when you have a good time with the snipers. Thanks for your time. You got it. Thanks for being here. Awesome. Yeah, appreciate Nick being here, going through. It's kind of fun looking at someone else's chart versus my own all the time, and seeing that we're seeing the same thing. So not in a position in any of these. I'm watching like a hawk for potential upside. True sniper, right? You're waiting patiently for that move. You're mapping it all out. You're watching it for your exact setup to come to you, and you're not just jumping in and out. Only in link spot for now. Oh, man, I'm going to cover link hard tonight. There's a buy signal on the weekly chart. There's let's take a look at your link chart real quick, Nick, and then we might wrap it up after that. Maybe we'll do near after link, but let's just take a quick look at your chain link. I want to see it, so I can get all my notes for later. I'm going to just copy your notes and we'll go from there. So we got, what are we doing on the weekly chart for link?
Yep. On the weekly, we have broken out, right? So get rid of that. So, if that's where's our peak here? Right there. So kind of right up against it, right? So we'll see what happens as far as a bigger move. But
what's interesting though, Nick, and do you see any on the weekly chart, any bullish divergence, and then what happens after bullish divergence that we feel as higher probability?
Yeah, so we definitely do. So we're seeing it going all the way back here to May of 2022, right? So more than a year's worth of bullish divergence on the weekly chart here for Link. But and when we say that, right, what we're looking at is basically that, and I know I've kind of got that line there, right? But generally that's going up, and generally this is flat or going down, right? So that's our bullish divergence on that one. And so when we have our bullish divergence, we feel pretty confident that, if we can get a break of the trend line, from kind of our peak here, that's going to be a nice move to the upside. Now, obviously, with this being the weekly chart, that's going to be a long time to play out, right? So we're kind of right up against it here, but just in terms of on the daily chart here, right? So I was not looking at this one. I think you were, but I was not. Had this, so we've had this bullish divergence in here, right, for a period of time, had our trend line breakout, then had an absolute perfect retest of it, right? And then it went. And so now we're getting up into the golden pocket, the upper arm of the anchored VWAP. We'll see, right? Does it keep going, or is that it? That confluence of the upper arm of the anchored VWAP and the golden pocket oftentimes is a big piece of resistance. It is a difficult one to get past. So, we'll see, right? I wouldn't necessarily be pulling the plug on it right now, but I'd have pulling the plug on my radar if we're showing, if we get a big ugly candle with a big wick there and then like another one or something, I'm happy to take my profits right there.
Yeah, and especially if Emmanuel, if you're trading with, let us know if you're just trading spot or leverage. But I would say definitely talk about what Nick just said. Have it taking profit on your radar if you're on leverage, because it can move quickly, right? It can move to the wrong side. So this is what I want to show in my chart as well. Like, this is the weekly chart of Chainlink, and I'll do a deeper dive later tonight. But just real quick, bullish divergence long term, right? You can kind of see that, followed by the reversal candle. You've I don't know if you've been hearing me talk about this more and more, but a bullish divergence followed by the reversal candle. I'm loving it more and more, Nick. So got to have you. I want you to jump in on that and do a deeper dive on the divergence and reversal candles as well when you have some time,
Cool.
when you're not traveling the globe or traveling the United States with wifey and you're not running your business successfully over there. And when you have extra time, take a deeper dive on divergence followed by a reversal candle. And
Cool.
then what do we have here on the weekly chart? We have
Support,
a potential higher low, right? And then after that higher low, we had a buy signal. So it's possible that we could be seeing a higher bounce, right? So you had that price breaking out of this lower, time frame. It's too early to say, but this could be long-term bullish divergence followed by a higher low. And so could we see Chainlink come up and retest the 200-week moving average, which is interesting because Bitcoin already has many stocks or crypto assets retested the 200-week moving average, but Chainlink has not. So stay tuned. Check out that video that's going to come out tonight. I'm going to do a deeper dive, like I said, for 10 minutes. I always say 10 minutes. One of the videos went 25 minutes recently. I tend to just get into the charts and talk way too much. So let's keep going here. PERS, wouldn't these smaller coins be totally hit if a recession were to actually hit? What do you think, Nick?
smaller coin, wouldn't these smaller coin? Yeah, I mean, so as Jesse said, almost think of any of these coins, right, as a business, right? And not all businesses are going to succeed. And when it comes to some of the silly ones, right, not even the Doge coins, I'm talking like I saw something, and I'm not even trying to get political, but it was like Donald Trump coin or like, come on, like, what are we doing, right? Like,
meme coins, right?
Exactly. Like, this stuff isn't gonna go to the moon, I don't think. So, and many of them will literally go to zero.
Yeah. So, one thing I do talk about is not all companies survive, right? Some will go into bankruptcy. Not all crypto assets will survive. So if each one is like a company, right? And, the stock falls, the crypto asset falls, not all of them will survive. So but first and foremost, we always trade the chart in front of us, but we are aware of what Bitcoin's doing. We're aware of what the Nasdaq's doing. We're aware of what the economy is doing. But first and foremost, like, you would miss like any type of bounce where Emmanuel's in like a long position here and is probably up on his position. You would miss it if you let everything else cloud your judgment. Because first and foremost, as a trader or as an investor, we're trading the chart in front of us, right? If you were so doom and gloom, or if you're so bullish, then if you were so doom and gloom, you missed the recent rally, right? If you're so bullish, you may have missed that the NASDAQ might have put in a lower high, right? So, or the correction when it corrected 37.5%. I just did this, the measurements on the 2 videos ago, but 37.5% from the end of 2021. If you're so bullish that we're going to the moon, then you missed that last 37.5% correction. So we do trade the chart in front of us, and it's possible that we see a little bit higher bounce after this long-term bullish divergence, followed by what looks like a higher low. So let's keep going. Let's see if there's any other comments.
Cool. Hey, Jesse, I got to cut out. I would stay, but I got my eye checkup. I got to go make sure the new spectacles will fit here.
Well, we are at an hour and a half. This is only supposed to go to an hour anyways. So this last one with NASDAQ breaking. Yeah, true. So we're going to call it here anyway. So thanks, Nick. I appreciate it. Thanks for everyone tuning in, commenting, liking. I know everyone on here is liking it. So thank you. We appreciate your time. And, Nick, I think we're going to do this again. What do you think?
I think so too. This was fun.
All right. Thanks again. Hope everyone has a good day, and we'll see you on the next one.
Thanks, Jesse.
Later.